Okay, I wanted to spend some time in a deep dive segment today talking about Saudi Arabia and really just there's a lot going on when you hear about Saudi soccer and Saudi football. I'll try to say football. It's very difficult for me because football means something else. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But Saudi Arabia's football ambitions, and we've talked about it on this show. And really what we sort of think, at least I'll speak for myself anyway, that is often missed about Saudi Arabia's sporting ambitions is so much of it has to do with things at home, like within the kingdom's borders. It's not some PR sports washing thing, at least in any way, primarily those things. It's an effort to develop a better quality of life, a healthy population, and a thriving sports industry within Saudi Arabia. Sports industries typically make a lot of money, especially the big ones. It's another thing I'm going to come back to in a second. Just this week, one of Saudi Arabia's 5 giga projects, the new Murabba, revealed designs for a new football stadium. Hannah, have you seen this? Did you see this come out?
I did, but I haven't really looked at it because I'm traveling, and so I haven't really actually looked at the news too much, but I saw a tweet.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's wild. It's if you haven't seen this and you're watching now, you're seeing it over on one of these sides of us. And so the whole thing is designed basically as an inspiration from the acacia tree. So for the first time ever, what we are seeing, at least what for the first time ever for me, it's like a wood stadium. It looks like the whole thing is made of wood. I've just never seen anything like it. So before we get into the stadium itself, I just want to take a step back and look a little bit at, all the developments going on with Saudi Arabia's investments in sports locally and focus really more on football and stadiums. Recently, I moderated a panel on the importance and influence of sports on Saudi Arabia's giga projects at the Giga Projects Forum in Riyadh. And one of the interesting things that came out of that discussion is something that clearly is a practice here in the United States where the development and especially monetization of sports is absolutely second to none. So here in the US, this definitely serves as a model for stadium development around the world. A point that I want to make here before we continue, the reason why I mentioned the US is that it would be negligent to not look at what's happening here. Of the top 5 sporting leagues by revenue in the world, 4 of them are based in the United States and play primarily in the United States. Every single one of those teams, pretty much, except for a few teams that share stadiums, have their own stadiums. And I mean, that stat, because the US is not even close to being a majority of the total population of the world. It's actually quite small when you look at the total population of the world, but 4 of the 5 sports leagues that are largest by revenue in the world are based in the United States. Number 1 is the NFL, which dwarfs everything else. The second is Major League Baseball, and the third is National Basketball Association, the NBA, and number 4 is the Premier League. So while it may seem like the Premier League is a huge, huge deal, it is 1/3 of the size of the National Football League. That is insane. That's money made. The NFL, 3 times the size. And what is crazy about that is there are 17 regular season games in an NFL season. The Premier League is 38 games. Major League Baseball, which is second, is 162 games. So the reason why I kind of mention this and give this as context is, stadiums, when they're built, you really need to think about stadiums and what they're doing when they're not being used for games, right? And for the NFL, it is insane how much money they make when they have 9 games a year in a stadium. And then for 356 days a year, basically, they are sitting completely idle unless they are planned for something else. It is really tremendously important that when you build new stadiums now, and you're starting to see it in Saudi Arabia, you're seeing it in the US and now elsewhere as well, that these are purpose built for sporting events and for big events, but then you have things going on there all year round. And that means that it can't just be a stadium and some stands and a few concession stands. It usually is an entertainment complex, often has some residential element to it, and definitely some commercial element to it in order for these things to make money. This is not lost on Saudi authorities and planners. So I want to kind of now talk about this new Murabba district in Riyadh, this new stadium. The designs were revealed on July 16th. It is being built as a, quote, architectural marvel with a capacity of over 45,000, which is actually quite big. The stadium will be the central pillar of the new Murabba, the transformative downtown destination city in Riyadh. And as I mentioned earlier, it is inspired by these sort of overlapping plains and peeling planar texture of the native acacia tree and it just looks like a wooden stadium, and it's hard to really tell because it's kind of got that like looks like AI rendering of it, so it's hard to like really see it. Of course, you can't like get up and touch it. I'm sure there isn't a model yet, but it's going to be so interesting to see how this actually looks and feels when it's complete. It'll feature cutting edge sporting technology, creating an immersive and personalized fan experience. The stadium will be a vibrant community hub featuring illuminated entry points, shaded spaces, tough to say, for gathering and socializing. And then here's the quote in the press release that really ties into my point about usability of stadiums and the new way of building stadiums. Quote, the new Murabba Stadium is strategically positioned to enhance community engagement. Its design maximizes long-term usability, allowing it to be adapted to host a wide range of events beyond sports, gaming operations, and competitions and exhibitions. So this is a quote from Michael Dyke, the CEO of New Murabba. The New Murabba Stadium is a symbol of Riyadh's dynamic future. It demonstrates our commitment to developing world-class infrastructure and experiences that will captivate both local communities and global audiences. Completion is set by 2032. So that will not be ready in time for the 2027 AFC Asian Cup, but it will be ready in time for the 2034 World Cup coming to Saudi Arabia. That new stadium is built in the new US style, which is, hey, we're playing some games here at this stadium. Sometimes it will be packed and sometimes it won't, but what is being put in here is a stadium and plus, as you like to say. There's a bunch of other stuff around this, and you can kind of see it in the design. It's like a mall, commercial area. They'll probably be connected very tightly with some residential areas. So I think what they're doing here is they're using these design firms that are doing things elsewhere and saying, hey, look, this is a great way to make money in the long term. Like, don't think of a stadium as some huge investment that you'll lose because it's part of some larger development. Of course, this stadium joins the announced earlier this year Mohammed bin Salman Stadium, which is truly, amazing, insane. I don't know what word to use here. It's on the side of a cliff. It's almost 65 stories high. Truly breathtaking views. If you haven't seen this, this is out of this world. The stadium is a unique design that it's basically totally covered in LED video screens, 45,000 seats, huge retractable screen on one side. And when that opens up, you'll have these crazy views over the cliff and Qadiyah. It's going to be used for football matches, but that one also had the same kind of verbiage. And I made the same point earlier about how they're building stadiums differently. Live music concerts, theater performances, more. These are just two stadiums that are coming that were announced in Riyadh. Of course, joining the new stadium lineup, which my co-host is now going to perk up when she hears, to the EP in Dammam. You'll have Dammam Stadium, which is going to be one of the new stadiums for Saudi 2027. There will also be a Riyadh stadium for the 2027 games that they say will be completed. I'm not sure about that. That was announced last year. Elsewhere in the kingdom, major stadium renovations and overhauls of existing stadiums at King Fahad Stadium, Prince Faisal bin Fahad Stadium, Prince Saud bin Jalawi City Stadium, and Prince Mohammed bin Fahd Stadium. So building new stadiums, renovating existing stadiums, clear indication that the investments in football, in sports, are not just a one-time PR stunt, but truly an investment into the infrastructure of sporting in Saudi Arabia. What we don't know is whether New Murabba will get a football team in the future. I couldn't find anything on that. Of course, Diriyah has one. Al Diriyah FC, that's been around for a while, haven't been terribly competitive, although I'm hearing that there may be some ways that they can improve the club's performance in a piffy kind of way to invest in the team to make it more competitive, but nothing on that. But anyway, congrats on the new stadium release. Check it out if you haven't. The photos are like, I kind of can't believe what I'm looking at. It has a bit of that Saudi kind of modern Saudi Salmani feel to it, but I don't know if that's like the technical term, but it just is really rad. And that's my deep dive today.
Really rad is a good way of describing it, actually. So just like the Dammam one is right next to my childhood home. So it actually is in my neighborhood.
Okay, so
I'm just gonna
home
say
values
that,
up, or what are we looking at here? Yeah.
Actually, no, I feel like traffic is going to be a little bit tricky when we have, the World Cup. But anyway, let's not think about that. Exciting that all of these other stadiums are popping up around the kingdom. Clearly, there's a need to, make sure that people have a space that is inviting and exciting to go to, not just to watch the sports, as you mentioned, but also to do things around culture and just different events, music events, different festivals, different things. Just a nice big open space to congregate and celebrate different occasions. So I think it's fantastic. And yeah, these photos are really, really interesting. The new Murabba Stadium is going to be something else out of this world. It's very futuristic, as so many of these structures look like, in photos. So it's going to be something to visit for sure.
Yeah, out of this world and yet worldly because it's got this like wood thing going on. And I mean, you said it right. I mean, it's like you have stadium designs and you can build a stadium for sports, but if you want to use that for like a wedding or for a concert, it really becomes very difficult. And it's little changes. You still have the pitch or the field, you still have stands, but then there are different entry and exit situations or different ways to set things up. If you plan for it in advance, you can use them for anything. You can also set them up like Qatar did and then take them down and move them somewhere else. I mean, the technology is incredible these days. So to see these stadiums that are coming into Saudi Arabia, across Saudi Arabia, that are innovative and new, and they're not just, hey, give me 85,000, I want NFL fans to drive out to the Meadowlands or, Southern Virginia, an hour and a half to go see a football game. And it's just like, well, that experience sucks. So like nobody wants that. To see them building and adapting to things that are already existing is really cool. It's very new Saudi, if I may say, the way that the approach is being done. So congrats. Cannot wait for the World Cup 2034. I guess I can wait, but I really hope to attend. So.
But I just wanted to pick up on the last bit where you were saying that it's kind of inspired by the acacia tree or acacia tree. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but in English. However, I was just looking at kind of a little bit more about the tree and its significance in Saudi. And, it kind of is native to the West Coast, as far as I understand, more than other parts of the kingdom, especially kind of the Southwest. But it's an important contributor to biodiversity within the kingdom, and it thrives in valleys and the surroundings. It does kind of highlight a significant resilience because they live through significant periods of drought and extreme heat. So I think it's important to think about that. It's also the wood that we'd used for campfires that smells really nice, but people can get in trouble for cutting down, right? So I think that, it is a part of the culture and people do feel quite close to it. I thought it was important to highlight that it's not just a tree, but there are a lot of cultural kind of significant factors to the tree itself.
So you can't cut the trees down, and that you actually can't use any local wood, right, at all. You have to import your wood to use for firewood because they don't want people saying, well, this tree was basically falling down, and right, you have to like buy your wood, as I understand it, in Saudi Arabia.
It's regulated, right? You'd have to buy it, and you're not allowed. And people are constantly getting in trouble for going out and just finding trees and chopping them down. We're trying to plant more trees. We're trying to keep our ecosystem as green as possible. And so, yes, there's, been an effort to really, really restrict people's chopping habits, I suppose. I don't know. There was a big market though, right? Like side of the road, buy a bundle of firewood. And that's kind of gone away because you do need to regulate it in order to protect the species itself.
Yeah, and so acacia, I actually don't know. I can't believe we just wandered into this segment not really having the real pronunciation, and that's okay. These are the ones, or one of the trees that are in the mix, especially in the Green Riyadh and Green Jeddah programs, because they are so drought tolerant that they kind of look good all year round. I mean, last time I was there was late May, early June, and these things were thriving. It was 100 degrees out, and I think they do really well. So and that's part of this whole green program. They're not putting pine trees in there that need water all the time. It's whatever is resilient, and that's cool. So yeah, it's really cool. The stadium's amazing. So maybe we'll have somebody on to talk about it.
Have you ever gone to any non-sporting events in stadiums?
Oh yeah, like concerts and everything. Sure. Yeah. What else is there outside of like music concerts? And
I played golf. All I can think of too.
Yeah. I played golf at Nationals Park in DC. They let you go to the top and then just hit golf balls onto the field with these targets. It was pretty dope, to be honest. But yeah, okay. No, I mean concerts, and then I guess you have you can have events. You can have like weddings. You can have, I guess in Saudi Arabia, they also have like football related things like announcements of signed players. I remember when Benzema was signed to your team and they had this like huge event. I don't know what it was, but it was huge. Yeah. And then of course you have, go ahead.
No, I remembered as I'm trying to like kind of rack my brain for other events that I've attended. And I attended a big event to raise money for cancer when I was in university at our university stadium. But then I remembered that in Princess Noura University, they created the biggest pink ribbon to raise awareness about breast cancer as well. It was a human pink ribbon, kind of women formed the ribbon with the, I think, clothing or whatever it was that they were using. I wasn't at that event, but I remember that as well. So I think you can do a lot of fundraising and a lot of awareness events as well. And the one that I attended, I was quite young. I was in university in the US at the time, but I think it was called a Relay for Life or something like that. So it was an all-night event where you stayed up the entire night lighting candles in remembrance of like lives that were lost, people that were lost to cancer and other things as well, races. And it was just a pretty cool thing. So I think that, those are the two things other than concerts that were both related to healthcare. So
yeah, you can have, and this is unique to the US and not to Saudi Arabia, but you can have political rallies at stadiums as well. And then the other things that are coming up for me in Google are wrestling matches, MLS games, and rodeos. So, you know.
Rodeos in Saudi. I mean, not my thing. I've never been to one, so.
You've never been to a rodeo? Well, you are missing out. You should check it out when you're in the U.S. next. They are quite something.
Races as well. Like, I feel like that would be a good place for monster trucks.
Monster truck races. There's a good one. I mean, have you ever been to one of those? Yeah, my son wants to go to one, and I'm like, I don't want you to be like into monster trucks any more than like having the toys. We don't need to go to these events. It's okay. They're super loud. Anyway, again, we find ourselves way off topic. Let's pull the sailing boat back to even keel and get to news.